Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle. We are back for another episode. I'm excited about my guest today. The one, the only Sue North came through. Man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show because something that I like about you and something that I've liked for a little while now about your music is that it's different. It doesn't sound like everybody else. It's not a plug and play where I'm like, oh, this is like every other person in the music industry. You have a very unique sound. You're pushing the boundaries. You've got singles that came out, Speedin' came out, Fly Away, and then you've got your EP, Listening to Sunsets as well. But man, absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Likewise, man. It's great to be here. And also thank you for that. I try to not fitting in a box. That's kind of like my whole mantra is trying to push the boundaries of art. At the end of the day, it has to be about art, even though we're in a space to make money, but it has to be art first and you need to break rules. That's like the number one thing for me as far as creating. So yeah, appreciate that.
Is that something you actively try and do, break rules?
Uh I
Like
think so.
sonically and artistically?
I believe so. I think, well, the reason why I think I maybe subconsciously break rules all the time because I feel like we as humans we change all the time, you know what I mean? And certain things that I would do when I was younger, I'm not gonna do 2, 3 years from now. And the story continues, the cycle continues. And I feel like if my art is staying the same, then I am not really pushing the boundaries. I'm not growing as a person because as I change, my music changes as well. The things that I think about change, especially me writing from a place of emotion. And I think all of the great artists all broke some type of rule. That is the only way you're able to push something new. And I believe breaking the rules as far as like art goes is just introducing a new way of thought or introducing a new way to create something or taking this piece and putting it in this basket, like my last song, for example, was very like indie pop and I wanted to try my hand in it. And I feel like um if I try my hand in and have the confidence of still being true to myself, then I'm pushing the boundaries of art.
Yeah, I think hip hop weirdly has lots of rules about
It does.
what you have to try and be, what you have to try and represent, what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. How did you find that, like finding your voice of like, yeah, there are lots of artists, and as you grow up, you obviously see the imagery and you see the things that is commonly spoken about, but how does that influence your mentality like long term?
I think I went through phases, like the first rap beat I ever rapped on was Tyler the Creator Yonkers. But at the same time, I wrote that verse thinking I was Jay-Z. I think now where I'm at in my creative journey, I tend to pull from a sense of healing, and I'm a big advocate for therapy. And I noticed that there's not a lot of, in the hip hop space, there's not a lot of people talking about, introspective and introspection and also therapy. I'm a big advocate for mental health, and I feel like it's very important. And during the pandemic, I really found myself leaning more on focusing on my mental health. And I believe it's taboo, especially amongst men, especially amongst Black men. I feel like mental health and therapy and seeking help is a very taboo space, and we're taught we have to carry ourselves a certain way, and we're taught weakness is uh bad or showing emotion is not a good thing. And to me, I feel like I want to just show all of it. And if I'm showing a range of emotions, I feel like it's a matter of time until the music wants to fluctuate as well. There's a range in different styles of genres that fluctuate. And I do feel like different genres of music are good at each, good at characterizing emotions. So if I'm all over the place with not all over the place, but if I'm big into expressing myself to the best of my ability, no matter the emotion, then I think the music is going to change with it, you know?
That's really interesting because I think you're right when it comes to therapy and taboo for men. I can only speak about my own experience with regards to that, but I have seen a trend amongst my friendship groups around amongst men that I've spoken to. But I find the interesting part is your emotional range connecting to your artistry in the sense of, hey, if I can express my emotional range and access an emotional range, then I can create different music and a wider variety of music. How long did it take you to figure that out with regards to, hey, I need to be able to access all the different parts of myself?
Oh man, I think I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but I think I stopped. I think it happened when I stopped trying to make music based off of what I listen to or based off of what my friends listen to or based off a playlist or an album that came out. I think before I was creating music based off of what I was listening to constantly. And outside of making music, I'm also a filmmaker as well. And I think it took me a while when I realized that, hey, like I can honestly say that the Coldplay song actually was grew up listening to Parachutes, that album. I love that album. And Yellow's my favorite song. And then I was like, maybe let me try to like recreate this song in my own twist, you know. And I think that was about 3 years ago. And I think that's what started that, oh, okay, I don't have to be in a this box to be considered hip hop. Because just like rock music, hip hop is evolving into all these subgenres, you know. So I think it took me about, I can say all my life, and the last 3 years, I've actually been making music that I feel like comfortable in expressing that are in different subgenres or genres, I guess.
Do you think that
Um,
the genre kind of, we always want to put everything in a box, in a genre, in like, how do I label this, how do I label that, how do I label this person's music? Do you think it's just coming to a point where we're just not gonna do that anymore? It's just like, this is Sue North, like this is his music. Like I think there are artists over time who just do their own thing, and we've seen the amazing reputations that they get, the amazing like journeys that they go on, and you can't even put them in the box. I think Andre 3000 is one of those
yep,
people. I think of The Weeknd as one of those people.
yep.
Prince was one of those
Oh,
people.
Prince,
So
yep.
and so that's the thing that I'm starting to see is artists who transcend time and genres almost become just themselves. Like they don't have a box. Like Michael Jackson is another one where like no one can really pinpoint where they are. Everyone's just like,
Yeah.
that's just them. When you hear them, you know.
Yeah. And I think that also comes with, well, I think that also comes with like mastering your craft to some degree. And also, I think once you're in a place of realizing that you're creating art, once you find your purpose, I should say, I think every artist have the purpose of creating art, and every artist's purpose is different. And I think once that artist find what their purpose is in the space, and then tunnel vision and ignore what another person's purpose is. Like somebody else's purpose is maybe to be rich, or they just want to be rap so they can rap to their friends in freestyle ciphers. Another person want to just make music for themselves. You know, I think once you accept why you're making music and I think hone in on that craft, I think it becomes, I just think the creativity becomes endless. It's come boundless. Like your focus becomes so sharp, and I think you begin to open up to different sounds, and you begin to interpolate those into your own style of music. You know, they have put this label on me as alternative hip hop, and I think it's cool. You know, it's crazy because I grew up listening to alternative rock, so it's kind of cool to see that. Um, But at the end of the day, it's just music, man. Like I'm not out here trying to fit a playlist or make somebody's editorial. I'm just making shit that I generally like. And if it so happened that somebody else can relate to them, then cool. I'm down to build with y'all. I'm down to build with the community, and see where I can push it from there.
It's funny that you brought up how you're labeled as alternative hip hop. Because
Mhm.
when I listen to your music, I'm like, I'm not so sure that alternative hip hop is how I would describe this. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, I know you kind of mentioned it as a side, but like, how would you describe it? And how do you feel about being described that way?
Man, first of all, I can rap though. That's one thing for sure. I have some songs on there where I'm from Harlem, New York, and I used to jump in these ciphers and I used to bar people up to death, 32 bars, and I listen to my rap. So I can definitely write some rhymes. So that's one thing. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like us as humans, we have to put something somewhere in order for it to make sense to the masses. At the end of the day, there are people who see my music as a product, and as an artist that is in the industry, I have to somewhat look at my music as a product. So I think that's my SKU code when people grab it and go to the checkout and beep, Suit North, it pops up as alternative hip hop. That's fine. But I do think that the people who really dive into my music, like you and my core people, I think they know that like this is more than just it's more than just alternative hip hop. I look at it as seasons. Like Listen to the Sunsets was a season where I was relying heavily on like my therapist and my family and my support structure, and that album came out the way it came out because I was after my therapy session, I was going to either the water or I was going up on the hills and I was watching the sunset and listening to music and writing my emotions out. You know what I mean? That's why that album happened. Black Millennial album that happened during the pandemic and during the prime of the pandemic where there were a lot of social injustice going on. That's why that album came out. So I think it really just depends on the season. It's more so seasons. I look at my catalog as.
Do
I
you
don't know if
think
that answers your question.
I think the answer you gave is the answer you gave, and that's more than enough. Um, but yeah, because I wonder, because I wonder if over your career they will adjust your lane or your box, or they would just like, okay, it's alternative hip hop, we're just gonna keep it there forever.
Mm,
Like that's the weird thing to me. Like you could literally just go, I want to just never have bars anymore. I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't feel it. And so then do you then just lose the hip hop and you just become alternative? Like that's the weird thing to me is like
Man,
where would it go?
I don't know if you heard Childish Gambino's new album, but goddamn, that album is so good. And I think a lot to me that album realized if to me it made me realize that I am like Childish Gambino's his pathway to where he's at now is very inspirational. I can see myself a lot in his path because maybe when I get gray hair and a couple kids, fuck it, I want to make this like rock song. You know what I mean? I want to make this like deep house or this electronic kind of song. Maybe I'll get there at that point where I'm like, fuck it, I don't know what else I need to do. But I think what he did is I think he kept his audience on their feet, me included. He always introduced something new in each of his albums. There was always a new sound. There was always something that, oh, I don't really like this. But then you go back later and you're like, okay, this makes sense now. It actually grew on me. And that's what I think music was before these these playlists, algorithm, Spotify shit is I was going to this, you were going to, well, not me, but like my parents and stuff. They were going to the record shop, buying a deck, a tape, or buying a record player, and you looking at the album cover and you looking at the songs. You got to listen to all them songs, you know what I mean? Because you spend $10 on this. You can't just skip and choose which song you want to playlist, you know. I think there's value in that. I think there's value in now in this day and age of staying versatile, you know. It forces your listeners to have to listen to it. And even if they don't like it, they went through your whole project, you know, and said that they don't like it, you know.
Yeah, I think the era that we're in is the era of the I listen to the first 10 seconds of the song, I check
Mm,
out if I like the beat, I go to the middle, I see if I like the flow, and then I make a decision on whether I like it or not, rather than
yep.
listening to the song, listening to it again, and actually listening to it. I think it's difficult. I look at what you do and I look at what artists do, and the nature of, like, pick it up, put it down immediately, 10 seconds to evaluate a 3-minute track that has taken
Crazy.
so long to create, like in terms
Mm,
of the process, and you take 10 seconds to evaluate it. I think that's really harmful long term for music. And I can
yeah.
see why people are like, I just don't know where to go. Like, because if it doesn't catch you in 10 seconds, does that mean this song is bad? And that just cannot be the evaluation criteria of
It can
music.
I completely agree with you on that. And I think that's why some artists like don't even include the feature list to their songs when it come out until like later down the line. So their fans won't just go and skip through that song. So but I want to believe that art still will stand the test of time versus technology. And the reasons why I believe that is because it's such a art is older than technology. And this is gonna sound crazy, but have this crazy hypothesis, so bear with me. This Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, I think Drake is a really great artist and generational talent, definitely one of the goats of hip hop. Kendrick as well. To me, think outside of the box of versus Kendrick and Drake, I think it was more so art versus music industry. And I think Drake puts out a lot of music at a high clip. That's because he has the resources to. And music is he has trained his fans to like digest his music quickly, and then they want to hear more, they want to hear more, which is a great place to be as an artist. But then there's also the Kendrick Lamar side where I think art and feeling goes before it turns into a product and before you give it to people. Before people used to put out albums and disappear for a while, you know? And I think to me, Kendrick showed that you can still be atop of your game in this space called hip hop and still be true to yourself, you know, and not have to play the internet algorithm things, you know, and you have to just like you're grown as a person and you have growing pains, you gotta share those growing pains with your fans when they say, hey, we need music. Cause I'm one of those Kendrick fans that's like, damn, he hasn't dropped in a few years, but I appreciate the time he puts between each projects because he has opened his artistry to me to where I understand him, you know. And I think that we can't let that side die down, you know.
I go through like waves of I can't pick which strategy is better. Do you
Mm,
release lots of music so you have lots of music out in the ether, or do you
mm,
make less music but you focus on overall quality, and you just go for like quality? You take years to make projects, you
yeah.
make very little music in the meantime because you just focus on your art. And
Mm,
I just don't know. I think it depends on the artist, because there are lots of artists who are successful and who
right.
are like renowned purely because they release a lot of music. And then there are
Yeah.
artists who just, and I don't know. If anyone was to ask me about a strategy, my answer would be I have absolutely no idea. And just got to do what's right for you. But I do think there is something to the release, let people sit with it for a couple of years and then go again.
Yeah.
Because albums age, as you said, over time. They critics think about them differently, people think about them differently, and you naturally go back because you're like, I actually haven't. Kendrick hasn't released anything new. I might as well go back to his
Mm,
album and see if I can enjoy it again. And I think there's something to that. Whereas if he dropped 3 albums in 1 year, you just pick your favorite like 5 songs from each one and never go back to the others.
I think it also, yeah, I think it also goes back to like, yeah, whatever, I agree, whatever works for that artist is what work for that artist. And if you can release music at a fast clip, then like go for it, do your thing, man. But there is a time there is I think in the music industry now, I think it was turning into a way where you had to release at a high clip in order to be successful in this space. I just think that whole thing reminded people that you can like take your time, you know. You don't have to be on Instagram every day posting your face and like putting content. That's like the word content. You don't have to be putting out content all the time, you know. I put out content almost every day, you know. That's because I personally enjoy it and I like to give a piece of my creative life to people. So, but I don't do it because I have to, you know. And I think that's a mentality that I think should kind of be questions is do you really have to do that, you know?
I think
Because
people know they have to because it's competition.
yeah,
That's what it
right.
is. I mean, you know,
Yep.
everyone's fighting for, we only have 24 hours in a day.
Yep.
Every human only has 24 hours in a day. So everyone's like, well, how can I grab a little bit of your 24 hours? How can I make what I do and what I create be a part of your 24 hours and hopefully on a regular basis? And that to me is the competition that
Yep.
everyone's trying to fight. I just don't I agree with you. I just don't think it's that healthy for people. Like I can acknowledge within myself, I'm on like TikTok for too long or Twitter for too long, and I'm like, no, this is
Yeah.
bad. I'm like, oh, this is all depressing. I need to leave, go outside, and
Yeah.
do a you, and I go and see a sunset, or I go for a walk and see the night
Yeah.
sky, and I'm like, oh, life is pretty wonderful, actually.
Right. It's like so much once you just like look up. I actually just started like um I will go on I have like I keep Instagram on my phone, but like TikTok, I will go on post and then I will engage. And then I treat it just like a TV, like I'm watching a program or like work. I only go on it for a few hours out the day and that's it. Because if like I had like a if I was at a 9 to 5 or whatever, you clock in and then you clock out. I treat TikTok the same, you know. Too much of something is never too good. So yeah.
Yeah. I think you gotta, I have rules where like, hey, if I'm with you, we're not on our phones. So like put the phones away. It helps me stay present. It helps me
Yep.
take a break. And genuinely, life is so much better live. I think I'm fortunate to be able to say that, but you know, there is something about like, hey, if I can smell the air, go for a walk, like the simple pleasures in life are really the best ones.
I don't know if you got a chance to see the Fly Away music video, but I directed and edited that video, and it was based on people who are addicted to technology, people who rely heavy on technology, people who need likes to fuel their dopamine. And that video was basically a creative over exaggeration of why you should always trust in humans and for your in yourself for a source of happiness versus the internet and the web, because that place is not real to some degree. You'll meet plenty of people and you do a lot of dope things, but at the end of the day, you turn that app off, you know, you turn it off. So I think, yeah, I think my song Fly Away, not to shamelessly plug myself, but yeah, that song kind of like was like the theme that we're talking about now.
You're allowed to talk about your music on a show that has invited you because you create good music.
Feels weird, man. It feels weird, man. I try not to, you know, I try to make it like a communal thing. I don't want to just like, and also this is what I do. I'm so cool at this and that. It's not really like,
Well, yeah, you haven't. You're allowed to say it. I mean, I've had lots of people say that type, but obviously you're representing yourself the way you want to. But yeah, I think the internet is fake. Like it is a projection of the world that people want you to see, or they're like it's all curated. None of it's too real. Even the bullshit where people come in and they're like, "Hey, this is my real life," and it's like it's not. No
Yep.
one films themselves. And like the weird thing to me is people filming themselves crying, going through emotional stuff.
Yo, that
I'm like, what the fuck is that? That's so weird.
and the camera's like perfectly set off in the corner or some shit, and they're just like crying, got this whole scene. That is weird. It's weird, man. It's everything, like I said, everything is like content. Everybody like wanna like overshare, and it's definitely weird, man. I don't get it, you know.
Yeah. I think it's the we've been told that fame and notoriety is the thing that's to be aspired to. And so now people are sacrificing their themselves in order to achieve a goal that really doesn't bear long-term valuable fruits. They're like willing to really cross themselves and their values just so that they can get some of that fame, some of that dopamine hit, and I
Hmm.
think it'll make them feel better.
It's fame over stability for some people, and I think stability is more important. That's all levels, mentally, financially, and across the board. Stability with your friends is way more important than fame, because you can have fame and still be broke. You can have fame and just like nothing to do with it. Just people just like looking at you and judge you, because you can have fame and nobody wants to support your artistry really, or like give to your cause or buy a ticket to your show. You know what I mean? Like fame is not community, you know. Like that's what I want to stress, is like fame is not community. Community is not fame, because community will show up and perform and know your songs, perform with you, and know your songs word by word. Fame, people will show up and have their phones out and just to tell their friends that they're there, you know. And it comes with, of course, when you're bigger, you get both, but I'd rather just have community.
Agreed. You want people who are there because they like you, not because they want clout.
Yep, yep. And I know it's gonna come. It comes with it, you know. It's the comes with the territory, come with the space, the higher you go. But you know, at least I'm able to see through the real and the fake.
Let me ask you, you mentioned therapy earlier, and I did want to ask you about it. How did you discover therapy for yourself? Like, what did that look like?
Um, I think I think it's multiple. I think it's multiple reasons. But I know when I was younger, I tried to go when I was 16 years old. You know, figuring myself out, and uh, family recommended therapy. I was going through like anger issues and stuff. And I went and I instantly didn't like it, because it made me feel like I didn't understand it at the time, and it made me feel like something is wrong with me. Um, and I think being in the environment that I grew up, like I grew up in Harlem, I grew up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Harlem, and I'm from the project. So I think my environment what was causing me to go through certain things that I was going through. So I didn't really understand it at the time. But as I matured and got older, and eventually spread my wings and figure out who I am and became an adult, I think I had friends that was telling me, I have friends that goes to therapy, and I have one friend who she's like a big advocate, and she will go and say, yeah, I'll just go and just talk. I'll just go and just have a session and just talk. I may go and I may not even say anything. I may go and she's my therapist doing most of the talking, or I may go just to go, or I may go just to bounce ideas off of with my therapist about how should I go about this next big decision I'm making in life. And I think that's when I realized that having somebody to talk to that doesn't know you, and don't have these biases, whether they like you or they don't like you, I think it's value in that, because you're able to work through emotions. Because I feel like um, 9 times out of 10, when a person is struggling through something, whether that be anger issues or whether that be deep sadness, is because they're not trying to feel it, or they're not identifying what it is. And I think once you identify what it is, it's not to fix it or to change it. It's just to identify it and understand that it's a part of you. You know what I mean? Like people think go to therapy to fix something. It's not to fix anything. It's to identify it and learn how to live with it, you know? And sometimes identifying whatever you need to go to therapy for turns into it goes away over time because you called it out. Sometimes it's you're there, it's something that's attached to you and you have to learn how to coexist with that. Um, so I think when I was really trying to make a imprint in his music when I really decided to, okay, I'm really going to try to pursue art full time. I think it was getting to me. It was very stressful because I was putting a lot of stress. I need to record these amount of videos. I need to be record these amount of songs. I need to be shooting these videos. I need to be doing that. And I think I lost my way in the space of trying to make it in the industry. And I think therapy pulled me back to realizing that my art and my craft and my music is more than just an outlet now. It's something that I am trying to do as a profession. And I need to then draw lines between those two. And yeah, a lot of things started making sense since then. I know that was a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it weird the power of just talking to somebody?
Yep.
Like
It's
yeah.
I'm not trying to cut you off, my bad,
No,
but
go for it.
it's I feel like when you just talk to somebody, it solves so much. Like it solves so much. And having somebody to tell you about themselves, about yourself too, that has no bias against you it's really important. Like I've gone to therapy sessions where I'm like, yo, I wrote this song. Can I just read it to you? What do you think? And then my therapist would be like, well, so why did you write that line? And then I'm mad because I'm like, damn, why the hell did I write that line? You know what I mean? It just makes you think about just shit you don't think about. So, therapy's what you're making. You can use it for anything.
Yeah, I think even broader to that of like, hey, it's important to talk to people. Like it's
Mhm.
important to converse. It's important to like be open and share with people that you love and are close to. Like I
Mhm.
think definitely as men, we're not good at that. Men
Oh,
have
no.
this prideful kind of like image of what it means to be a man, which is like just stoic, no emotion, the handshake, pat on the back, see you later
Yep.
type deal.
Yep.
But every person has those emotions, or most people have those emotions. And
Mhm.
so when we recognize that we have those emotions, it's like, okay, well, what I'm feeling isn't not normal. Like it is
Right.
normal. And I think
Yep.
that's the challenge for a lot of men is like they may feel a certain way and then they will feel like it's not normal. And so because when you think it's not normal, you don't want to talk about it. You're ashamed of it.
Right. Yeah. This even like men, we don't even like to say we're sad. You know what I mean? Like if one of our homies texts us and like we know we sad, we maybe got when you got like go from a job, maybe broke with your girlfriend, whatever, and your homie texts you and they're like, yo, what's up? What you doing? How you feeling? You're not gonna just it's typical, you're not gonna just outright write your homie, yo, I'm feeling sad. You know what I mean? And that's the standard, like you're not supposed to like show that. And I think once you keep holding that shit in, it eventually turns into like you're not being yourself. You know what I mean? Like you're not living yourself. You're not being yourself to the highest potential. So I'm quick. My family member called me or something like that, and I'm going through some shit. Hey, I'm fucking sad right now. Just to let you know. So this is what you getting, and this is what it is. I'm sorry in advance if I'm being a Debbie Downer, but it is what it is. And it just changes the whole dynamic. At least I'm being truthful. So
How do people react when you honestly share that way?
um I think I think I have an advantage because I'm an artist. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like when people I think like my family knows that I curate and I do all this creative shit, and it all has to come from a place of expression. So I kind of like get away with it a little bit. But usually, I think usually people react. I think they're usually okay with it. And if they're not, then I don't really know. I try not to really focus on if how people reacts to it, because if somebody is like cares for me and they're like my friend or my family, then me saying I'm feeling a certain way shouldn't then affect you if shouldn't affect you. I feel like the only reason why it would affect somebody is because of like societal standards. Like if I was to tell somebody, one of my homies, yo, like I'm sad or whatever, and he's like, why you acting soft? You know what I mean? Like that's a societal thing, you know? That's not what you probably think. You was trained, you was programmed to think that way. So I try not to think about what other people thinks.
What if your sadness makes me sad?
Uh, if my sadness makes you sad, then that speaks to I think that speaks to you as a human. I think if my sadness make you sad, then there's a relatability there, you know? There has to be a reason why. I don't say there has to be a reason, but there's either some empathy there, you know, which is everybody needs a little empathy, you know. You need to have a balance of empathy. So I think if my sadness to make you sad or anybody else sad, I think there has to be, of course, a level of like discernment wherever you're being like an empath, or if I'm being too much throwing my shit on somebody. I think there has to be a level of discernment on both sides either way.
Yeah, I think that's the key is like because I can understand and I've gone through this many
Mm,
times, which is I am feeling sad and
mm.
people ask me how I am and I don't want to burden them
Yep.
because I know they love me, I know they care about me, and so and I love them and I care about them, and so what I don't want is my sadness to then burden them. And I
Yeah.
think that's a common trait is to be like,
It-
I don't want to be a burden, but I have learned that there is a difference between being a burden and letting people in to help and support you. Because if you don't, that's you just end up pushing people away because you start
Yeah.
creating like this wall between you and between them and everyone can feel it. People are smart. They just
Mm.
they just know, they'll talk and they'll be like, hey, I just think, Aaron's not there's something up. There's a
Yeah.
distance that I feel that I didn't feel before, and I don't know what that is. He's not sharing and he's not communicating effectively.
And I think, yeah, you never want to leave that up to like an interpretation. You know, I feel like I realize it is really bad to let somebody else interpret your emotions. That is not usually a good place to be, because maybe people receive emotions weird. So, you know, if like that person is taking your sadness and your distance as anger and you don't want to be around them, then they'll feel like you're being an asshole. You know what I mean? But really you're not, you know. So I think, yeah, I try not to leave my emotions up to people's interpretations. Unless I clearly express myself and they're delusional, you know. It just all depends.
Yeah, which you hope isn't the case.
Right. I definitely hope that's not the case at all.
Well, yeah, because it is weird, and you spoke about it at the very beginning around like how you don't see a lot of it in hip hop, around
Yep.
how they don't talk about it in hip hop. I've noticed, and as I get older, as I speak to more musicians, as I speak to more hip hop artists, and we talk, the more I'm like, oh, like the music isn't representing who you are as a person. That's the
Yep.
that's the weird thing. It's all like, oh, you're different. Like
Yep.
you're a normal person who like goes about their day, who has family and kids and like cares about people, and then the music you make is
Right.
violence and aggression, and it's
Yep.
like and and part of me is like, why is it that hip hop seems to be stuck? Like how come it's very few people who are managing to break the mold? Like hip hop is 50 years old. It had its 50-year anniversary, and I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And I'm still a huge fan of hip hop. but I'm also starting to recognize as I age, there are certain limitations that artists seem to be boxing themselves in, and it doesn't seem to be from a place of authenticity. It seems to be something else.
I think that starts with I think that's a multiple answer, but I think the first answer I would say is that hip hop, I think now where it's at, I think there's certain ways to make money in hip hop in the most successful way. And I think people try to latch on to the fastest growing way to make hip hop, to make money in the space. I give you a classic example, drill music in New York. It's all sounds the same to me to some degree. And no offense against people who do drill music. I think it's dope. I think I like Shawnee Bin Laden. I like a few rappers that do New York drill. But I think there's a repetition in sound. And it's not naturally about, like gang banging and, you got your ops, you spinning the op, you spinning on your ops, you spinning the block on whatever, all that shit, which is fine if that's the life you live. But I think younger people see that shit and they be like, oh yeah, this is gonna make me lit. I need to make this type of drum. I need like this type of music to get lit. So I need to talk about spinning the ops. I need to talk about me shooting at this person. I need to talk about this specifically when it comes to drill. And I think it has that new offshoot of hip hop has generated a lot of new like artists, and they have climbed to the top or able to profit quickly in that space. So people tend to want to follow the money. Executives want to follow the money. That's one example. I think also hip hop is also naturally like a rebellion against something. That's what it started out as a rebellion. It started out as in the Bronx, It started out as something that was just culture, and it wasn't made to be then turned into a product, I feel like. Um, so is that side to where people, hip hop is always going to be remembered as a place that came from a sense of expression from people who were not provided the right opportunities in America, Black culture. So that's one and two. I do think though that there is other offshoots now in hip hop where it's less violent, but again, it's speaking to what you say. People are able to turn it off and turn it on, and it doesn't really leave space for the natural creators like myself, Um, so I do think that hip hop is in I don't want to say a weird space because I love hip hop so much. This genre can't do any wrong to me, but I do feel like we're in a space now where uh it's now whatever sound is hot, let me jump on that sound and try to like capitalize and make money off of it, versus like actually nurturing that genre to where it can sustain longevity.
Yeah. And I agree with both of those points. I think the thing that I'm seeing is the beginning of hip hop as a expression of Black culture is an
Okay.
important part of it. It's
Mhm.
extremely important. I think it's the underpinning of what made hip hop so powerful in the beginning is that people were expressing the life that was never expressed before. They were teaching lessons to their kids through the music, and it was a different sense of this music is here because we need to be able to educate people, and this is a great way to do that. And I
Right.
think music now in hip hop has evolved away from that. I think that there is a lack of like, hey, we're not educating you on the culture. We're just doing whatever makes sense to make money. And then when young people hear it, and, hip hop has had this discussion around it for a long time around when you hear violence, you think violence is normal. And I typically haven't been someone who has agreed with that narrative because I think, I'm older, I'm an adult, so I can discern what is real, what is fake. But I do definitely think that there is a point where, like, if that is all you listen to, that is what you think is normal because that's all that's coming into your mind. If all you hear is beefs, if all you hear is fighting, if all you hear is misogyny, if that's all you listen to, if that's all you're exposed to, that just becomes your new normal. And then what does that mean for the society, and that what does that mean for you within it? And so
Yeah,
I just have all these questions of, like, I think we're losing touch with the importance of the expression.
I agree. And people also forget that you get older. How can you make this idea of that hip hop is a young man's sport, and I'm still a young man. Uh, but the idea that the idea that hip hop is a young sport is just not is not true. And I would encourage people who are in this space who are just making music because they're in hip hop making music unintentionally to be more intentional about what it is that you're doing. I forgot what I was watching the other day where people who were born in the 90s, which is me, that I didn't grow up listening to Tupac or Biggie, you know what I mean? I only listened to Tupac or Biggie through my dad or through my older brother. I didn't Tupac and Biggie was not the first person I learned how to write rhymes from. It was Jay-Z, it was T.I., it was those type of rappers. But I did go back and do my research. It's important, Like if I want to be in a space, I need to be knowledgeable about who set this thing up into play. And I remember when I was like listening to music and listening to Kendrick Lamar, and then um I think it was either my uncle or somebody was like, he kind of sounds like Andre 3000. And I'm like, I haven't really fully, I've heard some songs like Hey Y'all, whatever. And he was like, nah, you need to go back and listen to ATL Aliens. I went back and go listen to that album. I'm like, God damn, like Andre 3000 is rapping his ass off. And this is like Andre 3000 in Atlanta doing his thing before he blew up into the mainstream. And I found a new appreciation for Kendrick Lamar, but also it made me start wanting to sharpen my pen to like, damn, I want to see if I can try to take this flow and do something to it to my own. And I think part of the reason what you're saying about this generation now, I don't think they're going back and doing the homework. You know what I mean? And doing the homework is not writing the thesis. It's just shit. Just turn on an old album, listen to some Reasonable Doubt. Listen to some Beastie Boys. Just it doesn't take that much to go back and listen to some DMX. Like you could just, and if you don't like it, you don't like it, but you should listen to it.
Well, I
50
think
years
it's
is not that
evident.
old.
It's evident that that doesn't happen. Like it's.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got rappers now who were born post 2000, like, and they're 20. What is it? 24. You're born in
Yep.
2000. You're 24. Like that
Yep.
is insane. And you've got classic albums that were from the 90s that, like, and even before. I'm probably guilty. I don't listen to enough 80s music to really go
Mhm.
back. And so it probably is a bit hypocritical for me to go, you got to go listen to 90s. But
Mhm.
I do think that there is a limited view of what hip hop is. And if you pick up hip hop in mid 2000s, you have a very skewed perception of what it stands for. And
Yep.
that's what worries me long term, is that if the culture is moving in a place where don't worry about the past, you only look forward, then we're going to lose what it was that meant so much to people.
Mm. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think this 50 years does mean is I think this 50 years is really important, I think. And I think hopefully it encourage people to want to go back and like listen to the people who laid the foundation of it. And if you don't listen to it, at least appreciate it.
Well, I mean, Eminem dropped a new album, and then people started going back to his earlier shit, and they were like, and there's so many reaction videos now about Eminem, and it's like,
This
man,
is not
this
new.
is old news.
Yeah,
This
he's
is
been
like,
saying Practice.
Yeah. He's been speeding. He's the cleanest he's ever been with
Yeah,
regards to the shit he's been talking about. So it's kind of
yeah,
like it is weird to see people go back and react to old music. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. You cannot hold artists accountable to the standard that you currently live in. They can only be held accountable to the standard that they were living in the time. So you
yeah.
cannot get like you can't be upset at people for making music in their era. That's
You're
their
right.
era. That's their
Yep.
norm. That's their standards. That's their society. You can reflect and be like, it wouldn't be acceptable now. That can be
Right.
true. But you can't
Right.
be that offended because they didn't grow up with the values that you grew up with. That's
Yeah.
different. So
Things change over time,
yeah,
So you gotta allow that person to evolve too, Like why would somebody be the same person they was 10 years ago? Like it things change. So I agree with that. I haven't heard his new album yet, but a lot of my homies saying it's really good. So I gotta tap into it soon.
yeah. There is some good stuff on there. Um, I think the opening track is fire. He goes very hard. But I won't. We won't go too far into it. But something because we have kind of been alluding to it, and you made the song "Emotion," and it's a clean song. And I wanted to know your perspective on clean music versus music that's not clean, because that's a specific artistic choice that you made.
I think for specifically for Emotion Ocean, I think well there I did write a like a dirty version, explicit version. Um But I think the reason why I opted to make a clean version because I think I wanted it to reach more ears. Um, and I didn't want to have to deal with a clean and a dirty version. Um, and I think that the reason why I did that is because I felt like I wanted to express my emotion in the most clearest way as possible. And I didn't want to put a whole bunch of fucking this and a whole bunch of shit this. I didn't want to put any of that because I think uh one I think sometimes cursing is based off of like regional thing, like I wanted people to listen to my music everywhere else and be able to translate it. Um but I think the main reason why I made Emotion Ocean clean is because I think that was the clearest I felt emotionally in a while. I think I've, you ride the waves, it's ups and downs, ups and downs. I think when I wrote that, I was at a peak to where like at the top of the mountains where I can like see both sides down. And I think there was clarity there, how I felt in myself and my being. And I wanted to express that through the song. So I opted to like make it clean.
So it was just what felt right to you at the time.
I think there was an intent. Yeah, it felt right, and I think I wanted to be. I think there was an intention behind that because another reason is I like to always challenge myself when I write too. So sometimes it's easier to plug in a curse word to fill in a gap or to fill in a rhyme scheme. And I was just trying to like see if I can, push the boundary a little bit and express myself in a more precise way without having to use a curse word that can be an ad lib or that can be anything. So.
That's interesting. I wonder how many artists could create a song with no cursing in
Man, that shit is hard. I'll tell you that much. It wasn't for me, it wasn't easy because I'm so used to like, let me just put a fuck right here. You know what I mean? Like this goes, let me just say this shit. It's like whatever. I'm rapping, it's hip hop. Just be yourself, be pure. But I think to me, being intentional in my writing, that was really hard. And it actually helped me because I'm more intentional with my writing now. Like I went from like just writing my 16 in 5 minutes and then I can like record it and done. But I now write, record, listen, revise, write again, listen, revise, curate, that's my process. And I also let more people into my writing now. Like Andre, his name is Andre Baca is his producer name. I work really closely to him, and sometimes he would suggest a couple lines to change here, or he would be like, "Yo, send me the bars you wrote from this session," and I'll send it to him, and then he'll just hey, I suggest you say this, I suggest you say that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll try that out. I'm more open now with my writing, you know. Yeah, I feel like the cohesive is more cohesive now, you know.
Yeah, I imagine the whole process would have taught you a lot about yourself.
Oh,
A
hell
lot, a
yeah.
lot about your technique, a lot about how you think, a lot about like, oh, I do have limitations that I didn't previously identify.
Yeah, it killed some it killed a you know, as an MC, I got that MC ego that nobody can write better than me. You know what I mean? Like I'll give you the best 16 you ever heard. Like I still got that chip on my shoulder as a like a natural MC. But I think when I'm like I'm understanding that like I'm not just writing 16s anymore. I'm like actually trying to make pieces of art here, you know. So I need to be able to let people in and tinker a little bit and put my pride aside, you know. So
Yeah, that actually leads me because I actually wrote down a quote of yours, which I thought was really good. And I don't think it's not from a song. I think it's from a conversation you had or an interview that you had. And I think it resonated with me in terms of your art. And it goes, freedom is not being perfect. Freedom is trying things and failing. Freedom is understanding that we are not alone in this journey called life. I'm living
mhm,
life with you, see life through my lens of self-discovery, joy, and therapy. And
yeah.
I think that is exactly what you were talking about is like, yeah, you're not perfect, but you're still creating art and you're trying and you're evolving. And I think there's something beautiful in the understanding of you're not perfect because
Yeah.
a lot of musicians feel they have to say they are.
hmm And sometimes that song that, you know, doesn't sound too good or the song sometimes, well, you're always going to be writing from an imperfection of a place of imperfection, you know. Nobody's ever like this. So I think there is, yeah, that it is a lot of freedom in being who you are, you know. And I had to learn the hard way not to beat myself up over failure, you know. It just failing or making a wrong decision makes you so much of a better person because you got that experience, you know. New perspective to write from, you know. New perspective to understand the shit that you appreciate, you know. Like put my hand in the fire, get burned. I'm gonna appreciate when I put my hand in a bucket of ice, you know what I mean? Versus me just sticking my hand in a bucket of ice and just raw dog it. I'm gonna be like, what the hell, you know?
But you're probably
Studying.
just not going to put your hand in the fire again because you're going to be like,
Correct.
that
But
sucked. That was
yeah,
awful.
but you
But
know, we're human, so we're gonna make dumb choices, you know?
yeah. Well, I think there's nothing wrong with a mistake. It's about learning from your mistakes. I think
Correct.
if you make the same mistake all the time, it ain't a mistake anymore. It's a choice.
That is correct. I agree 100%.
Yeah. God, we're complicated, man. Humans are so complicated.
It's riding the wave, man. That's what me and my homies say all the time. Like, I'm riding the wave. If it's something else popping up new in my life that's like either new good or new bad, I'm like, yo, it's a new wave coming. It's a new wave coming in. So I gotta get prepared, you know. I'm gonna crush it or the wave is gonna fuck me up. So
But either way, it's pleasant because we're going swimming.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
We'll find out they correct.
Yeah. I was thinking about I was having a conversation with my girlfriend the other day about like the importance of positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely think that positivity like emanates throughout your life and surrounding yourself with people who bring positivity and think positively and try to, as much as they can, look at the positive outlook on life does help you. And
Yeah,
I just believe that. And because of that, I also believe that in music that when you listen to like positive music, you are gonna feel better versus when you listen to sad music. Although it's beautiful, if that's all you listen to, I do
mhm.
worry about people who, hey, if that's all you listen to, that's all you're bringing in externally.
Yep,
And so
yep,
I'm like, I'm trying to consciously listen to music that is happier and that is more upbeat because I can recognize now within myself that it makes me feel a lot better.
yeah. I agree. I think that's why I put out, I think speeding is like post emotion ocean. You know, I think it's post listening to sunset. Now I'm like out here with people. I'm around friends and I was able to work with Limbo, her music is dope and working with her has been like a breath of fresh air of she's changed my artistry again, flipped my world upside down again on how I want to move as an artist. And I think Speedin' is like one of those records that kind of shows that once you get through the storm or once you get to understand self, now you can share yourself with your friends. You can have these moments, with the people you care about.
Yeah. And I think your music is definitely helping towards that. Like, I think it helps show it. I appreciate what you've been doing and the journey that you've been going in terms of self-growth, and then how it's been translating into your music and your music videos. Like, when I was looking through your music videos, they're not stock standard, like plug and play every rapper that I've ever seen in my life who's outside just like spitting bars. They have taken creativity and you've thought about it. So it's it's really good to see that there are people like yourself out there making choices like that, taking risks and trying to do something different.
Thanks, man. That's all I can do is try, right?
Hey, that's it. You're representing yourself, you're
Yep.
doing what you can, and at the end of the day, you want to be able to rest your head at night going, hey, I did my best and I represented myself in a way that I'm proud of.
Yeah. This feels like a therapy session, man. I think you should take up being a side characters. You'd be good at it.
I don't think so. I'm not qualified. I think I just like talking to people. I think I'm genuinely like fascinated, and I'm fascinated by artistry. And I think it's helpful for positivity. I've had people ask me like, would you ever like try and get your guests, or like, surprise them and catch them out? And I've always had the same opinion, which is, why would I ever want to do that to somebody? Like, I want them to speak to me and not regret that we've had this conversation. I want them to turn around and go, hey, I would do that again if given the choice, rather than, oh, that sucked. I just feel like I was there to just be made fun of.
Yeah, or checking off some boxes of just like certain questions and stuff like that. Yeah, I think what you got going over here is really dope, man. I whole 110% believe that for real.
Well,
This is
I
actually
appreciate it. I really do. That being said, I'm going to ask you the one question that I ask every single person on the show. So, just before you get too complimentary, let's see how this question goes, and then we'll go from there. But if you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
damn. I would have to say Parachutes by Coldplay. And I think that album was the first album that actually made me feel something. Um, the song, the song Shiver on that album. Uh, I didn't even have a girlfriend. I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time. I didn't have my first girlfriend yet. That song Shiver made me want to fall in love, I think. I didn't even know what love was. And I think that album, if you want to like study pure emotion that cuts through sonically, and a range of emotion, a range of vocals, and just put it together, a range of emotions and vocals that put together that make sense. I think Parachutes is one of those albums that it never gets old.
Love that, man. That is a fantastic choice, a fantastic explanation. You're the only person that's ever recommended a Coldplay album in
Oh
the
wow,
all the
really?
episodes that I've done. No one's recommended Coldplay. So, hey, I love when we're
Oh,
getting out the box, we're doing something
yeah,
different,
man.
and man, you're doing that. You're taking risks. You're doing great things with music and your artistry. And for anyone who hasn't checked out your music, definitely check it out. Speedin' featuring Limbo. You've got Fly Away. You've got the album, that the EP that came out, sorry, Listening to Sunsets. And then you've got Emotion Ocean, which is really fantastic. That's what we were talking about with the clean music. You've got it all. I know you're going to keep releasing music, man, but is there anything you wanted to plug, anything you wanted to shout out before we wrap it up?
I want to give a big shout out to Brittany White, who is an A&R director who helped me put this project together. I want to give a big shout out to TT, the manager. She is another dope A&R. I want to give a shout out to Marcel Scott, amazing DP, and DOP, an amazing filmmaker. And I want to give a shout out to Baka, who is my lead engineer and produced most of my stuff. That's the team right there.
Awesome. Well, keep the team going, man. It's clearly working, and definitely I'm excited to see what else you put out, and we'll definitely have to do this again soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you.